Hey gang, welcome back to the Police Rec. You're here with your mushy boys.
Want you to not exist.
Happy New Comic Book Day, geeks, and welcome to issue 46 of the Script Heroes podcast.
The show where we bring you comic news, book reviews, and industry blues. My name is Joseph Jasonowski, and I'm the writer of Gender Hero, Cunning Carly, and the Cryptoverse.
And I'm Katie Markham, scripter of the Rusty Robot Country Club and ghostwriter extraordinaire. We have a beautiful bloated pull list rec for you this week. We are going to be talking about Ultimate Spider-Man, number 10, Daredevil, Woman Without Fear, number 4, which is the final issue of this miniseries, Titans, number 16, which is our jump back into this series. Thank you, DC All In and Mr. Layman. Local Man, number 25, which is the not final issue, as they go on a long and unexpected hiatus in true Image fashion. The Pedestrian, number 3, which is the penultimate issue of that series, and Prairie Gods, number 2.
Yeah, a ton of awesome polls this week. So if you enjoy any of those reviews or anything else in today's episode, you can follow the pod on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, all at the handle Script Heroes Pod. Or you can find me personally on all the same socials at JJAZ1111.
And I am on all socials at Katie Markham Pro.
And now, let's move on to the news. Okay, so to start off the news for this week, we're going to be talking about a new imprint. I always like talking about new imprints. Because I think
is this a new imprint or a new old imprint?
No, this is a new imprint. I'm not talking... I decided not to bring up some of the news that we had already covered when it was leaked that has become official, which is the Vertigo news, the Jeff Loeb and Jim Lee jumping onto Batman news, because we already gave all our thoughts on those when they were leaked. So I figured it would be retreading the same ground if we talked about them now.
Both of those things were confirmed at New York Comic Con where Jay was in attendance. If you saw Jay there, give a shout.
Yeah. And I was in the panel where Vertigo and the Batman news was revealed, Jim Lee and friends. So that was very cool. We're going to talk about some news today.
Wait, is that what they called it?
Not at. What?
Did they call the panel Jim Lee and Friends?
Yeah, it's the Jim. Are you not aware of the Jim Lee and Friends panel? That's where DC makes a bunch of announcements at every convention. Yeah. Because
DC doesn't announce things at the conventions I go to.
So
Jim Lee doesn't come to me. He knows that I threatened to drop kick him.
Yeah, that makes sense. That tracks. But yeah, it's Jim Lee acting essentially as yeah, it's Jim Lee acting essentially as a moderator as he calls up other DC creators and they announce new books and talk about what they're doing and that kind of stuff. It's pretty cool. Jim Lee was running late and he ran in with his backpack. It's such fun to see the editor in chief of DC running in with his little backpack.
Clearly he was working on his Batman pages.
Yeah, clearly. In any case, we do have some DC news. That's not where I wanted to start, so we will get there in a second. But we're going to start with some IDW news, as IDW has unveiled their new horror line called IDW. I believe it's IDW Dark. Yes, IDW Dark, and this is going to involve 2 creator-owned series called Event Horizon and one that Katie is quite familiar with, Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees.
So is this an OGN series imprint?
No, it's a horror imprint.
Right, yeah, but Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees has already come out, and I think Event Horizon has also already been coming out, hasn't it?
I think it's just the future issues will be under the
Interesting, because I didn't get the impression that Beneath the Trees would have a second volume or anything. But that's super rad to hear.
Yeah, it says to follow up. Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees will be following up. Yeah. Anyway, but the next part of this is in addition to these couple creator-owned series, they are expanding their relationship with Paramount, which, if you're familiar, Paramount owns the Ninja Turtles, so obviously IDW and Paramount have a fairly good relationship as they've been doing TMNT for nearly 15 years now. For a bunch of Paramount's horror properties, and these are going to include 30 Days of Night, Sleepy Hollow, The Twilight Zone, and A Quiet Place.
That's super cool. I know that a lot of the classic horror stuff. I mean, obviously EC was a big horror publisher. We saw, isn't Oni doing a horror line?
It's
coming up
EC.
soon.
They brought back
Oh
EC,
yeah,
and
Oni
that's
brought
been
back
going on now for a
EC.
while. Yeah, it's been going
Um,
on for like 4 or 5 months now, I think.
mhm.
I think most of those are
But
on
didn't we
issue
hear about
4.
another horror imprint from someone?
I feel like you're right. I weirdly, I don't know why I thought I do. I think you hit something. I think Oni's weirdly doing like a separate horror
Because I
thing
think they were
besides
doing the
the
one
DC.
with Mr. Frodo.
Yeah, I believe that's correct. So yeah, I think
Yeah.
Oni's just like really dipping into to horror because
Well, they got some competition now. But we
yeah,
also
they
see
do.
that a lot of like smaller presses focus on horror. Like Blood Moon does, I think, almost exclusively horror stuff.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
they do
that's
horror and sci-fi, I believe. They have
mhm.
one other thing. It's horror and something that they do. They have like a two pie thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, that's
but
super cool. We love to see creator-owned stuff, and I mean, I think it's good for the comic space to have like the. I like when they do movies as comics. I think that it is something that it doesn't feel like the most like exciting thing, but it feels like just such like a yes. There's
yeah,
some legitimate work in the comic space where we're working on like things that have established fan bases and the such.
I like when they do it like I read the first Terminator issue from Dynamite,
Mm-hmm.
which was quite good. I like when they do stuff like that that's like with the property, but it's not just adapting or like
Oh yeah,
retelling the
yeah.
story of the movie. I'm hoping like that's what this is. Like I would love to see another Quiet Place type story. Like Quiet Place is probably the
Mm-hmm.
one out of these that I will be out of the licensed ones that I would be
Right.
most likely to pick up because I think
Mm-hmm.
A Quiet Place is such a cool idea and like as the movies have done some really cool stuff, but I feel like uh, I'm a comic book
In the
guy. I feel like
comic
comic book
medium.
creators could really do some cool stuff with that concept, and
Yeah.
I would be really, really interested
Like
to see
looking
how
at
they do it.
things that like such a property that already works on having like a very dialogueless style.
Yeah,
Having that
I mean,
adapted into a
literally,
comic
just
book is
go like
super
that "Ain't
cool.
No Grave" issue and go with like
Yeah,
the very little dialogue stuff, and I think it'd be really, really freaking cool.
absolutely.
Maybe
No,
something to
that's
get like
super
a
rad.
writer artist on, like just the like get Ben Stenbeck on that
There
and
you
like,
go. We
ooh.
loved Our Bones Dust. Amazing
Yeah.
limited dialogue series.
Yeah, he might be
Phenomenal.
a little
Yeah.
bit caught up with his not quite imprint, but the universe that him and Mike Mignola are building out.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But um, I would love to see just what I thought. But yeah, you want to talk about anything else under the IDW Dark Line, or do you want to move on to our little bit of DC?
Let's jump over to DC.
Okay, so yeah, this is from so DC had like two big announcement panels. I went to the Jim Lee and Friends one, which was the more like general
Mm-hmm.
DC panel, and then they had their Absolute and All In panel. Um, so we're going to be talking about the latest confirmed Absolute title, which is Absolute Martian Manhunter by Dennis Camp and Javier Rodriguez. Which, by the way, the like art that was shared for this, the like
I was
essentially,
seeing that.
I'm
I
assuming it's cover,
love how it
is
looks.
so cool. It's
It
so
is so
freaking cool, and
stylized.
we got one bit of like I guess like
Lore.
yeah, lore thing here. Thank you, Katie, for finding words when I never have them. Which is that Absolute Martian Manhunter is not from Mars,
Okay.
which is very interesting. And I believe Dennis Camp, my friend was telling me about like the panel, and he was very excited that he was at that panel. And I believe Dennis Camp said that like when he came up with his pitch for this for Scott Snyder, and he was like, "I'm gonna do I think we should do a Martian Manhunter that's not from Mars." He sent it to Scott Snyder and then told everybody like, "Yeah, this is one of those pitches that I just had fun, sent it out, and it's totally a no. I know it's a no, so we're gonna be not gonna count on that." And then almost immediately from Scott Snyder got back a yes, let's do it.
I
So
mean, the whole point of the Absolute Universe is to shake things up, is for new interpretations and new angles. So I am super excited to see where this goes. Um, One of us, this might affect our draft picking going forward. If you guys haven't checked it out, we're doing a fantasy football style draft for
yes,
the Absolute Universe.
um,
So this may be tipping the
yeah,
scales for character
oh
picking.
yeah. But I believe we have one more. I don't know if this news is about, but I found out for the first time from like the stuff that's coming out of this panel is that apparently it's confirmed there are going to be 8 absolute books. So this brings us, I believe, to number 6.
Because we have Batman, Wonder Woman, Superman, obviously. Then Flash,
Flash,
Green Lantern,
Green Lantern, and now
Martian
Martian Manhunter.
Manhunter.
And within that, it's confirmed that one is going to be a team book. So
Okay.
I think my best guess, and like we shall, I'm interested to hear your thoughts too, but my best guess is the team book. I would have said Justice League Full Length, but I think it's actually probably more likely they give like the Teen Titans a team book so that we can like also open up that corner. But maybe not because none of these guys are really going to have sidekicks. So maybe I am going to go back to the Justice League thing. But based on what we've seen so far out of the first 6, I think we're just doing the 7. So I think we're going to get Aquaman, and especially because another little bit of news that they announced a mainline Aquaman book.
Yeah.
With
Jeremy Adams, right?
Yeah, Jeremy Adams,
Yeah.
the lad. My guess is, maybe they want to get that announcement out before they announce an absolute Aquaman because it'd be weird to have an absolute Aquaman without a main Aquaman. There's my predictions. You go nuts with what you think here.
Well, you said there were going to be 7 absolute books, and we've got 6.
8.
Oh, I'm sorry, 8.
And 1.
Okay, I agree. Book. I think Aquaman's going to be there. I don't think they're going to go Justice League. Because I don't think they're going to want to, like, have to fuck around with coordinating the books. I think they're going to let them kind of be as separate as they can be for as long as possible. And I think a big part of that is going to be them being in very separate spaces. I say this having not read Absolute Batman yet, because we're doing that review next month with all the other absolutes. I think they're going to go with something like Legion of Superheroes. I feel like they've been doing Legion stuff just kind of sporadically. It'd
be such a weird thing to do in like a new universe, though. Like you're gonna, yeah.
I have a thought. They might do a New Gods book. I know that they're just starting a new Gods book with Ram V, but with like the Dark Side
tie-in. Might be stepping on the toes there, though. But you're right. There's the Dark Side. But if it's not
until like months upon months from now, with that Dark Side tie-in, I wonder if that's how they're gonna like resolve the bridge between the universes.
That's very fair, but
and that could also be where Booster comes in.
With Booster Gold being trapped there, maybe Legion is, the
fair
way to
too.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now once you started going into the crossover book, I went back and I'm like, maybe your first idea because you gotta think Booster's gonna tie in heavily to one of these books. And the most logical one, unless he is getting his own there, which feels weird because he wouldn't be an absolute character.
He wouldn't be the absolute version. Yeah.
Like it would make the most sense for him to be one of the characters in the team book. I would guess. Like that would be my thought, that like we can see him join this team and he could be essentially like an audience stand-in to learn about this team, because obviously a team book will have a lot more heavy lifting to do with all new characters than the solo books will. So having Booster Gold there for them to like explain stuff to might make a lot of sense. I'm talking myself.
Yeah, I'm gonna stay with my New Gods and Legion as my
I like the Legion thing. I just like, because within All In, which is tied to Absolute, they've been pushing Ram V's New Gods so freaking hard.
That's fair.
I just find it so hard to believe that they're going to turn around and go, here's another New Gods in the
Unless they're universe. Very much trying to be like, you all remember New Gods. Look, familiarize yourself with New Gods.
That's fair. I mean, that's my theory with Aquaman, where it's like, we're doing Aquaman. It's not like we're only going to do Absolute Aquaman. So here... and also, if they are doing Absolute Aquaman, he better have the fucking hook for a hand. Because I am done with Aquaman not having a hook hand.
He is being gritty in the Absolute universe. He can have a hook. What did Darkseid call it? He didn't call it like sin. What is it, chaos?
What?
What was Darkseid's thing about the Absolute universe? Is it that it's a universe ruled by chaos instead of order?
Yeah, I believe that's
a hook is chaotic.
A hook is chaotic.
Inherently.
I like the hook, man. I miss the hook.
The hook is badass as hell.
Right? Like it's a nice
funny for the fish man. I'll say it. He has a hook. Lol.
Yeah. I don't know why we can't have the hook. I don't know why people decided the hook's not okay. Like I know that it's the 90s. That's the best thing the 90s ever did, was give Aquaman a hook. Like
I like that this was like a very soft discussion of a hook hand. Like just I think, intellectually, I think he should have a hook.
Should have a hook. Listen. did the hook stray when he started like changing attachments on it and stuff? Yes, like that's going too far. Or like when they gave him like the water bending hand. And I mean, the new, maybe that'll come back because the new Aquaman book I do think is supposed to be about him like getting Mera's powers. So he's gonna have like water bending. There were like giant water kaiju in the images shown.
That's
Pretty
rad
freaking
as
cool.
hell.
Jeremy Adams is a freaking, that man knows how to come up with some
I am
cool
not against
names.
Aquaman having magical powers. Like, let him go full sorcerer. It fits with the Atlantean themes. It works.
And like, if he's gonna be, using magical powers anyway, he doesn't really need his right hand. So just,
Exactly. And he'll do one of the little interchangeable things into just a full Harry Potter wand.
Yeah.
Do we have any other news coming at us this week?
Oh no, I mean, we ended up kind of touching on the Aquaman news, so that was nice too.
Fair enough.
But because I genuinely had forgotten about that until the conversation, otherwise I might have put it up there. But anyway, I think that was a good covering of the news, and we have so many polls, so maybe we want to get
so many
to
polls.
those
Yes.
polls.
Let's boogie on over and talk about Daredevil, Local Man, Pedestrian, Prairie Gods, Titans, and Ultimate Spider-Man.
Okay, so we have 6 very, very cool polls for you guys this week. We're going to be talking about Titans, number 16. We're jumping back on. Very excited for that. We're going to be talking about the Pedestrian, number 3. Super excited to talk about this. Local Man 25, which is actually like Local Man 14, or One Shot, however you want to look at it. So we get to dive back into Local Man. Ultimate Spider-Man, number 10. Daredevil, Woman Without Fear, number 4, which is the end of this book, except not really, because it's just going back to another number 1. And finally, I don't have a physical copy because for whatever reason my store didn't get them in this week, but it's Prairie Gods, number 2, and I will hopefully get my physical copy this week. But Katie, of course, that's not all we picked up. Do you want to tell the fine people at home what else you got this week?
I would love to, but I left my little stack over there, so I'm going to look on my phone. Let's see. This week was also Batman and Superman, World's Finest, number 32. I can't believe that book has been going on so long. Batman and Robin.
Last one with Gamora?
I thought he was already gone.
Is he already gone?
Yeah, he's already gone. But I do like Adrian Gutierrez, who's the one who took over. Batman and Robin, year 1, number 1. We thought about doing that for the pod, but already have a stacked ass week.
So many books.
Dark Knights of Steel, All Winter, number 4. I grabbed Godfather of Hell from Vault. Nightwing 118, of course, the end of the current run, which is a bummer for me, but it means that I need to just read really fast to catch up. Because I think Nightwing also comes out next week for the All-In. And Vicarious from Boom. What'd you pick up, Jay?
I got Green Lantern, number 16. I got...
Is that Mr. Jeremy Adams?
That is Mr. Jeremy Adams. What a lad. I read like the first 6. I think I'm assuming it's 6 because that's how much DC usually does in story arcs. I read the first story arc and then have not gotten back on it since. So I need to do that fast because there's going to be a Green Lantern event coming up soon, which is very exciting. So yeah, I need to catch up on that stuff. But I also have Jupiter's Legacy finale number 1. Have I read the other Jupiter's Legacy books? No, but I have the trades, and I'm hoping getting this in the floppies will spur me to finally read those trades that I've had for like a year now.
Iconic.
I have I just had a little like thing in there that was a handout, so I tried to I got both covers, or not both covers, the A and B cover of The Last Ronin Re-Evolution. Number
Who's your
3.
B cover?
Kevin Eastman is the B cover.
Sick.
And I must get Kevin Eastman covers because, that's necessary. Great. I read that issue as soon as I got home because I love Last Ronin. It was phenomenal. And then I have 2 kind of fancy books here that I got at New York Comic Con.
Oh, he's gonna brag.
So Charles Soule and Ryan Brown were giving out early copies of the Lucky Devils number 1, which comes out in, I believe, January. So I got this from their, Artist Alley booth. And then I got an ash can of Jason Aaron and Muhammad Asar's new series, Bug Wars, that they gave out to a couple people who asked questions at the Image panel this morning. So
That's so cute.
yeah,
Love that.
very, very excited
What
for that.
question earned you
So
your ashcan?
um, uh, it was a question about how the shrunken down bug world would interact with the larger
Ooh.
world. And I had to, very specifically told them that I was not asking about bug fucking because they talked about bug fucking a lot in the panel.
The
Do not
people want to know.
the people want to know. Bug fucking is apparently a part of this series, so as the people wanted.
Oh dear. Wild. It's been added to my pull list now. I gotta see how those bugs fuck.
Listen, we've been loving Batman Off-World, and
We have.
and the first couple issues of his TMNT run. So Jason Aaron, I give him the leeway for that. I was very disappointed when I
He gets
I
the
realized
leeway for bug fucking.
Yeah, I was like, I should have brought a Batman Off-World issue to get signed, and I'm
Bummer.
a little disappointed in myself. So, but I got that signed. So, and that was free because I got it at the panel. So,
hell yeah, big wins.
What is your thought on order here, Katie? We have, I think, only one DC book. We have two Marvel books. We've got Prairie Gods is what publisher? Mad Cave, right?
I believe Mad Cave. Let's start with Titans.
And then Local Man is Image, and the Pedestrian is Magma. So we really have mostly different publishers outside of the Marvel books.
Okay, I believe we start with Titans.
Titans, okay.
Get in there first for the new era. I feel it's very important to tell the viewers at home on our little document here, Jay just wrote tits.
Know what I meant.
Here's the thing. I would not have been able to continue speaking if I didn't address the tits.
That's what I was trying to get you to crack, because I knew you would also be looking at the document. So I was like, let me just write it. Here's tits.
And it worked. It's very hard to get me to crack, folks. I'm a steel just facade. Then let's jump to let's do Daredevil Woman Without Fear, go from a start to an end, and then Spooderman next. Dart is sending me even more. And Spooch, oh my god. Tits, Dart, and Spooch, dude. Then
not be read out.
Let's go to Local Man after that, and then hit Prairie Gods, and then end with the Pedestrian. And I'm going to finish this sentence so I can not look at what he's writing on the document. Titans, number 16. This is part of DC's All In, so it's meant to be a good jumping in point, which is good for us who are jumping back into the series. A league of their own. After the events of Absolute Power, the team looks towards the future and their place in it. Will their failure to control Amanda Waller mean lasting consequences for the hero community? The writer here is John Layman of our personal favorite, In Hell We Fight, and Chew. The artist and colorist is Pete Woods of Robin and Action Comics, and the letterer is Wes Abbott. Jay, new Titans arc, new Titans creative team, more importantly.
Yeah. And I think truly a jumping on point. Like this, more so than that Batman and Robin issue, is such a fresh start with the Titans moving to well, I guess not moving because they do go back to Titans Tower, but now having a bit in the Justice League headquarters and being a part of the Justice League, which is a very interesting change of pace for them. And there's a lot of okay, here's how we're reshaping the team. Here's what this is going to be moving forward in this issue. But before I touch on, because weirdly, I think most of the conversation I want to have about this book is going to be the high level stuff of what characters are staying on the team, what characters, because I think that's really interesting for us to talk about. But before I get there, I want to just throw out that in one issue, I already love the way that John Layman writes the vast majority of these characters. I think there's a lot of really, really cool stuff there, especially with Donna, who ends up being kind of the focal point of this issue.
I think Donna might be our kind of, in the same way that when you have a team leader, they get a little bit more. She's stepping into that role and she's getting a little bit more.
And I thought Pete Woods did a phenomenal job with the artwork, especially on, and got to unbury the lead, Roy is joining the team, which I am so happy about as a huge Roy fan, and I absolutely love the way that Pete Woods draws Roy Harper. I think that it's just phenomenal.
Yeah, I love when a book has a very distinct style to it, and I feel like this is a really good style that feels distinct, but also feels not like crazy out there. You know, like
Yeah.
you can take big swings with things. Like I think that Riley Rossmo's art often falls into like the big swings category for me. But this is like that happy medium between being so stylized that it becomes incredibly subjective and being like close enough to home that it does also just feel like good regular comic art.
Yeah, I fully agree. But yeah, like, to touch on, I think the big slight spoilers, but they come in the front. Well,
Mm-hmm.
one comes in the front half. Maybe I shouldn't talk about one because it comes in the back half. I'm
I
gonna
wouldn't
start with
talk
the
about yeah, I wouldn't talk about why things happen.
yeah. I'm gonna talk about something that happens. I think literally on like page 4. Wally is leaving the team. That is
Yes.
a very early thing here. We're not gonna get a Flash on the team, which I think is actually for the best. Like I do think that especially Wally in his full Flash glory is a very difficult power scaler for a Titans team. Like it's very
Yeah,
difficult when it's like
we've
this man is faster than instantaneous movement. Like this man is just the one of the most powerful beings in this universe. And it's like, ah, what the hell is, Donna Troy and Dick Grayson and Cyborg going to do? Like maybe I can
yeah.
buy that Raven's still useful on this team, and maybe you could talk me into Starfire, but like everybody else, like nah, you're
Yeah.
just not useful anymore. So
When you can
I think
run
that's a
fast
good move. I do
enough.
want to throw out
Yeah.
because I don't think that it's. I'm assuming it's not original to Titans with Wally leaving. Where
Mhm.
did Suit come from? Not a
I
huge
have
fan.
no idea. I don't like it. His new suit has like all of this black on it, which I get
Yeah,
that they're trying, and it's got like kind of stars in it. So I feel like there must have been some sort of like flash in space thing that happened, or maybe it had to do with the absolute event. If they
my
had
guess would
some
be that
sort
it
of
had to do with absolute
solution
power in
that came
some
from
way.
that. Well, Wally's also the main Flash in Flash, so it could have happened in there. Um,
Yeah, it could happen it could be something like that's gonna happen in Justice League Unlimited, and so,
mhm.
we're like seeing it here because of timeline shit, you know.
Yeah, it's not
But
great.
yeah,
Is the kind of end bit of it. Um, it's it's just rough to see such a different costume and one that
yeah. Again, my assumption is that
takes a
it's
big
not
swing.
from this book because giving him a new
Yes.
suit for
Oh
the
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
one issue that he's gonna be in Titans makes no sense. So, but
Exactly.
maybe it's from Titans leading into this. Like maybe this happened in Titans 14, 15. Like
Oh
who
shit, you're right because we stopped reading it like issue 7,
So somewhere in there. So
something like that.
that absolutely could be the case too. Just want to throw that out there because Wally suit tends to be adjusted a lot. Has not reached the peak of Rebirth Titans, which is
Rep
just
booth.
perfection.
So
But
good.
yeah, I really love the design of everybody else in this book.
Yes.
Especially Roy and Dick. I really like the way that Pete Woods does the white eyes. I think that
Hmm.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
So I really like our couple of masked boys with their nice white eyes
Right?
here.
I also really liked Donna has this deja vu moment. We have a couple things where people are like flashing back a little bit, and
Yeah.
we see like their original Titans costumes, and I thought that Pete Woods did a great job with that. I think that it's
Yeah.
always you always have to make a choice when you're flashing back to Robin. It's like, are you gonna have him in the speedo or no? And they went no speedo, and I'm like, I can respect it. And I think that it still looks like a very good like OG Robin suit.
I
Paying
I
homage
agree, but
without
overall,
being distracting.
yeah, this made me very optimistic for what's to come. There's
Mm-hmm.
another roster shakeup that I don't want to spoil in this issue that I'm sure we'll talk about like more in depth in issue 17. That
Mm-hmm.
one has me a little bit more trepid than the Wally one, which I think made a lot of sense to swap Wally out for Roy, like
Yeah.
for power balancing stuff and everything. And even for team dynamics, I think John Layman has said in interviews that he wants this team to be a little bit less like cohesive than Titans had been, a little bit more
Yeah.
turmoil in there. And swapping out Wally for Roy is a great way to
He's
throw
a
some
great way to do that,
turmoil
yeah.
into the team,
And I
and
think
it's
we
already
already
in the
saw
visual.
yeah, we saw the rumbling of that even already
Yeah.
with Donna and Dick actually, when talking about their like place within the Justice League and within the Titans. And I think that's going to be a big thing to play into it as well.
Yeah, we see it with Roy and Don a little bit too, as they're like trying not to admit that they're gonna have an issue getting along, but it
Yeah.
seems like they're gonna have an issue getting along.
Yeah.
And I like the seeds being laid there.
Right.
And just a shout out
And we
to
even
John
see
Layman
some
for
weird
like
stuff. Mm-hmm. Go
yeah,
ahead.
because I think majority of his DC stuff has been like short-lived, one shot, like that kind of anthology stories, that kind of stuff. But this is such, and I mean, maybe because like obviously his creator-owned stuff tends to be long. She went forever, so
Yeah.
like it's not like he doesn't do long stuff, but just this feels like very much good seeds being planted and great
Mm-hmm.
beginning vibes. And for somebody who at DC has mainly not done long-running stuff, I think that's really great that he was able to do that so well in this issue.
Absolutely. And we even see it a little bit with, I believe it was Starfire and Gar, where Starfire's like, Raven, your boyfriend's being fucking weird. And you can see all these interactions that I think right now are very like, okay, it's not a big deal right now, but are going to build and build and build into this conflict within the team. That's going to
Which I
be
think is what
really
we said we wanted
exciting.
out of the Titans, and
Exactly.
it's what we were kind of missing in it. Like,
Yeah.
a team needs some turmoil. They don't always need to be at each other's throats, but there needs to be some disagreement. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's the fun thing about a team is that you have different personalities and different opinions, and not everybody always on the same page. And I think John Layman has just proven in this issue that he understands that, and he understands how
Yes.
important that is.
Super, super psyched to keep going with this. But are we ready to hop over to the boys in red with Marvel?
We're going to boys around like, don't you mean the woman in red? Because we're going to be talking
Oh,
about Daredevil, the woman without fear.
there we go. You're right. Let's go. Do it.
Fear number 4. The wages of sin is death. Electra Nachos knows better than anyone just how much blood is on her hands. But unfortunately for her, anyone, in this case happens to be Joe Garrison, the new Punisher. The writer of the series is Erica Schultz of Daredevil Gang War, Rat City, and X-23. The artists are Michael Dowling of Judge Dredd, Thor, and Amazing Spider-Man, and Ivan Forelli of Fantastic Four, Venom, and Amazing Spider-Man. The colorist is D. Kanife, and the letterer is Clayton Cowles. Katie, we've been very much enjoying Erica Schultz's Daredevil run across the numerous series that she has been writing with the character. This is the end of the second one with the announcement of the third one to come.
Yes.
Where are you at on your feelings of the finale here?
I didn't realize this was the finale, which is possibly coloring things a little bit. It didn't feel like a finale to me, is the big thing for me. It was.
It's really open.
It has all of the things that I have really liked in Erica Schultz's Daredevil. So the good monologuing in the captions for Daredevil, the really phenomenal action sequences, the way that she like uses Daredevil's abilities to uh, uh, great effect. I think my problem was a bit of a story one, and one that I don't know that I really noticed as much in Gang War because it was tied into the Gang War event, but I felt like, no, I think it had a really good ending with her and the rival assassin. They had a really good thing going. This one, I felt like the Daredevil's goal in this series was find Alice and make sure that she's safe. And what we get here is a kind of bland resolution to Alice was safe all along. Like there's a good interaction in Alice's apartment, and maybe there's context I'm missing that would give me more uh, context for Alice, because this is my first time meeting Alice. So the way that the Electra Alice Carol tension happened didn't feel like a really satisfying ending for me.
I don't think any of that's because you're missing stuff.
Okay.
Like there wasn't really ant tension there. Like her mother obviously is dead. Her mother
Mm-hmm.
died in like some symbiote bullshit after being taken over by a symbiote and like another symbiote killing her mother when she was a symbiote, and then Elektra was there and eventually became her ward. So like we
Mm-hmm.
didn't really get much. This is really the start of that like sort of tension and standoff. Like that wasn't really
Mm-hmm.
there before
Okay.
as much. Because she was kind of just Electra's ward, and that was like it wasn't really challenged until
Gotcha.
here. So yeah, I don't think that any of that is because you're missing stuff. I agree for the most part. I think that was a little off. I don't love like the way that ended with Alice's like specific resolution and the way they did that final scene.
Mhm.
But like you said, there's a lot of what I still liked in this. Like I
Yeah.
love the fight scene is similarly phenomenal, and like it's in this nice dark setting in this, and Dowling and Prairie do a phenomenal job with
Oh,
the
yeah.
visuals of that like dark nighttime fight, and it was really really intriguing. I thought the opening of this issue was really good too,
Yes.
like seeing Alice now actually in trouble as
Hmm.
Elektra is no longer able to like get to the phone. Like that was just a really well placed
Agreed.
kind of moment of tension. But yeah, I thought weirdly both of the endings kind of I don't know why I said they fizzled because I think you're right that it just feels like they're not final. And I don't
Hmm.
want to knock that because I think that's just I don't think we'd feel bad if it wasn't going to another number one instead of a number five. But I have
Yeah.
a feeling that the number one is going to feel like the number five.
Hmm.
So I don't want to like knock it until I read that issue. And if that does pick up these threads and continue, I think I'll be perfectly fine with where this went. But as it stands as an issue, because like
Hmm.
I think both of those were pretty open, and I don't want to. It's tough because I don't want to talk about
That's
the
fair.
specific resolution of like
Yes. Right.
the things, but um, at the very least, I think the Alice thing is super open to kind of continue.
Yes, very much so. And I think that, like you said, if number one of the new series feels like a number five of this series, then my dig isn't at Erica Schultz at all. It's very much at Marvel for, like, I would not pick up a trade of this 4-issue mini because it doesn't
Okay.
feel like a complete mini series.
Yeah,
And if they're jumping, I wonder if they're just jumping over to a new series so they can go red band with it. Um,
I think that's probably
yeah. But if
the
that's the case,
likelihood.
then let it go for another arc and then pick up with Red Band when you've like got a more solid conclusion that happened. So
Yeah,
I was a
I
bit
agree with you.
disappointed uh, with this for it being an ending. But like you said, like I said too, all of the hallmarks of a really great Erica Schultz, Dowling, Fiorelli, Daredevil are there, and they're
Yeah,
doing their good work. If it was not the end, it would be just as good as any of the other issues, but it just
I
didn't
think
have
we
that
said
extra
it
oomph.
like when I don't know if we were on Potter when the number one was announced, we're like, can they just give her an ongoing?
Right?
Because how many number one Elektra, Daredevil, Erica Schultz are we gonna have? Like, please, just keep it going. Like this is
Just keep it going.
peak Marvel renumbering constantly because this will be the third renumber in a year. Like
Yeah.
that is within a year, not like it like within a year, and that is too many.
Way
Like
too many.
a book can go more than four. Like
Mm-hmm.
I get it if like okay yeah by the time you reach issue 12 or whatever sales have dipped. So if you want it to continue, you got to go back to number one. Like really, we can't do an issue 5 like with
That's
that.
what I'm saying. That's why it came on me so quick. Because I thought for sure
Yeah.
there was an issue 5.
No, Marvel does. Marvel loves the fours, man. Marvel loves the
They
fours.
used to love the 5s.
Yeah, yeah, they do. They love the five sometimes too, but they still love the fours as well, man.
Yeah.
Marvel just getting sure. Marvel's gonna be doing the threes soon, and we'll be there. But in any case, do you want to move on to our boy in red this time,
Yes.
and talk about Ultimate Spider-Man number 10?
Spider-Man. Yes. Ultimate Spider-Man number 10. J. Jonah Jameson, Ben Parker, and the Green Goblin collide. Fan favorite duo Ben Parker and J. Jonah Jameson take center stage in this investigative mystery issue. But in this world of shadows and secrets, every unturned rock leads to danger, and they'll soon have to decide which is the greater challenge, uncovering secrets or keeping them. The writer here is Jonathan Hickman of the Avengers, Fantastic Four, and X-Men. The artist is David Messina of Rom, Cloak and Dagger, and Catwoman. The colorist is Matt Wilson, and the letterer is Corey Petit. Jay, like it said in the blurb there, this is a kind of deviation from form for Ultimate Spider-Man. We're focused on Ben and Jonah like the entire issue. How did you
Yeah, it's
feel
very paper focused.
about this
Or
this this wacky wild issue of Ultimate
yeah,
Spider-Man?
it's I'm coming up on a theory, and I need to go back and look at like some of the. And if
Ooh.
I was a professional, I would have done this before giving my
Eh.
theory, but I'm not. So we're gonna.
That's alright.
Let's
That's
see.
alright. Off the
When
dome.
Marco Cicchetto is not on an issue, I think maybe that's when they feel the need to do something that doesn't follow Peter as much.
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
yeah, because like we had the like the Green Goblin order, we had like the dinner party scene. So like I don't I feel like those were maybe not Cicchetto. So I'm interested to see if that's maybe how it's been going, or I could be talking out my ass. So who
You
knows?
you talk
But
about the book. I'll check out your theory.
yeah, yeah. So in any case, yeah, I do like that we're getting some paper for. I talked about this, I think, in the beginning of the last issue when we got a little bit about the paper at the start there. Like, it's good to see J. Jonah and Uncle Ben because those are two of the coolest characters in this book. Their relationship is really great. But it is interesting going basically a whole issue, or not basically a whole issue without Spider-Man and a whole
Mm-hmm.
issue basically without Peter because we get like 2 pages of Peter. Um, that being said, I quite liked, I think, the idea here, and I really like the back half of this issue. The front half, which is essentially Ben and Jay Jonah like digging into their like theory of this company that was
Mm-hmm.
bought out and eventually went to Oscorp, but it ends up being the Star Company with the Iron Man suit and everything.
Yeah.
Like, I just didn't think from a reader perspective, I didn't think their investigation was particularly engaging.
Agreed.
Um, but once we got to them like figuring things out, and it was like now they're pushing Gwen, and then they're pushing Harry, and we get that
Mm-hmm.
interaction between. I'm not going to spoil the interaction between Harry and them.
Yes.
I thought that was phenomenal. Some of like Jonathan Hickman in peak form writing, like it was
Mm-hmm.
so tense, so cool, such great personalities meshing. So the back half of this issue, I thought super delivered, and I thought conceptually this issue was really freaking good, but the investigation itself, in like the front half of the front third of this issue, really didn't engage me a ton, which
Yeah.
hurt a decent amount. But overall, yeah, I like conception. I thought the execution was pretty good, and then really good.
Yeah, I agree with you. The lead up in the bulk of the issue being the investigative part was not super exciting. I think I really like the scene where they confronted the guy in the country club. I feel like that had good kind of, I don't know, stakes and as action as you can get with two old men doing journalism. Like the kind of social stakes of that, I think were really good. But then there's a lot of like kind of talking around what they're talking about, you know? Uh, and it's also, Jay's been holding up pages, and you'll notice that it's on a pretty rigid grid for most of the issue. And
Yeah, it's pretty
I
much
don't
shown
think
nine
that
panel grid.
Yeah, I don't think that that did it any favors. I think that in the scenes when they were talking to people, like when they were talking to the guy at the country club, when they were talking to Gwen, when they were talking to Harry, I think those were moments where the 9 panel grid was really effective. But I think that the scenes in between, like the little transitions and the little moments between Ben and Jonah, I very much could have used like a break from the grid to make the grid feel like it had more tension to it, you know?
That's fair. I'm gonna lightly disagree. I think a 9 panel grid is often a format I really like for non-actiony
Mm-hmm.
books. Like I think it works pretty well for like a lot of like basically books that have a lot of talking and just character
Yeah, a lot of
interactions,
back and
which is what
forth.
this is. And I think that David Messina does the 9 panel grid pretty damn well.
Yeah, like
So
he
yeah, I
does.
have no issues with the 9 panel grid in this book. I don't think that was like the reasoning behind any of my kind of
That's fair. Yeah.
faults with it. I think a lot more of mine was just the like as much as I love Jonathan Hickman, I don't really love the way that he writes like investigative dialogue. Like it's a lot of
Hmm.
we saw this company bought this company, and then once we just followed the trail, it's like he makes it sound in a way. And while he does have a line there, I think later on where Jay Jonas says something along the lines of "No, it's not easy. We're just that good." I think he makes it sound like it is just easy. Like it really sounds like, oh
Exactly.
no,
Yeah.
anybody could have found this in like an afternoon. So I don't love that. But I love the way that his characters interact, which is the real
Hmm.
strength of this issue.
Exactly. And that's why I think that the better scenes are the ones where they're talking to the guy at the country club, the guy, or Gwen, and
I didn't
then
really like the one with
Harry.
the guy at the country club. I
I
thought that
liked
was
it.
like
I
a
think it had
bad.
a good
I like
underlying
the
tension
tenor
with
of
it.
it, but I thought there was a lot of like what they were saying to him. I was just like, no, that doesn't sound like you're doing like good investigator. I was like that
That's
feels
fair.
lame.
That's fair.
And yeah, because that was like the brunt of the front bit. Like they did
Mhm.
that, and then they have like a 2-page thing of them like investigating on their own, and then they get to like the Gwen scene, and that's when it
Mhm.
kind of turns into like the better stuff. But yeah.
Yeah, very fair, very fair. But as we've seen with Ultimate Spider-Man, it can have these like slower, more almost fillery issues, and then really
Were
come
you
back
able
swinging.
to verify or unverify my theory there?
So the Harry Osborn one obviously was not done by Cheetah. We knew that. Um,
Yes.
was it number 3 that was the dinner party? Do you remember?
3 or 4.
Because I'm looking at the summaries of those 2 issues, and number 3 was done by Chichetto, and number 4 was done by Messina. But the 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 summary of number 3 feels more like it would be the dinner party, uh, but perhaps not. So I'm sorry, I could not verify your theory.
Yeah, I'm gonna throw out and you absolutely could be right. I thought the reason you disliked number 5 was because number 4 was dinner party, and you were upset that we didn't get back to Spider-Maning in 2 issues straight.
That might have been it, and that would fit your artist theory, which I think is a theory that makes a lot of sense. Um, so it's you.
Which
You are
I
the
will
new
throw
J.
out
Jonah.
slightly there of like I think that's a bad decision to like commit to not doing Spider-Maning in issues that Chichetto can't draw.
Yeah.
Because Messino is a very, very capable artist, and I think that
Oh
it's doing him
yeah.
a disservice to let him draw like static people talking.
Yeah, I
Like,
don't think it's that they don't want him to do Spider-Man. I think it's that they have these slower issues, and they I would read it more as they want Chichetto to focus on those Spider-Man issues. So it might be that for the more action-packed issues, Chichetto gets a bit more time to work on those with these filler issues happening.
yeah, but I mean, my guess would be that like my point is that they you can do that and then still have Spider-Maning in the filler issues. Like the idea is if the idea is that Chichetto cannot do Spider-Man packed issues every single month, like I would still have action packed Spider-Man issues in those other issues and just give them to different artists. Is the point
And
that I'm
see,
making?
I'm thinking that it started the opposite way with Hickman writing these issues and then them being like, okay, we won't have Chichetto do this issue
Never do
because
that. I
we.
don't think that they ever choose to take an artist off a book like monthly unless that artist cannot do every single month. You know, like.
I mean, fair enough. It is a
Uh,
mystery that
Like
perhaps we
I
will
think
never
Marvel would be
know.
more than happy to have Shadow draw every single issue of Ultimate Spider-Man if that was a possibility. I doubt Marvel's sitting there going, yeah, you let's just take this month off Shadow because it's not an action-packed issue. Like I can't see that being the way that it goes.
I mean, I don't think it would be as simple as that, and I don't know that this is something that we can have an answer to. But your
Oh yeah,
your theory of issues
that way.
without Spider-Man not being Chichetto issues does seem to hold up.
Pulled it out my ass, and it is maybe true. So, but in
But
any
doesn't
case, do
answer
you
the
want?
question, what does it mean?
What does it mean?
I don't know.
Anyway, what are we jumping over to? We're jumping over to. I
We are
wrote
going
walks.
to
I don't know what that
Local
means. Local man. Local
Man.
man 25.
All right, let's get local.
Local man 25. Just as the Image Comics line did back in 1995, Local Man jumps ahead a full year to give you a glimpse of what the future brings from issue 13 to 25. Third Gen is back with a vengeance. Their first mission, bring down the reckless young superheroes of 4th Gen. But will Local Man side with the Zoomers? Will really help take them down in exchange for getting back the shield and uniform of Crossjack? The past, present, and future of the Image universe collide hard in Local Man 25. The writer-artists of the series are Tim Seeley of Hack Slash Nightwing and Batman Eternal, and Tony Fleeces of Stray Dogs, Gargoyles, and Feral, and the colorists are Felipe Sobrera and Brad Simpson. Katie, we have enjoyed Local Man since we caught up at some point. I don't remember what issue that was. And now it is maybe over. So as we
Yeah.
jump ahead a year here, how did you feel about this essentially one shot set a year after where we left after the faceless? It was called the Faceless Void, right? That's what
Yes.
I believe they were called. How do you feel
Correct.
jumping a year ahead after the takedown of the Faceless Void?
So the Faceless Horde was so good. Like, truly phenomenal villain. And I don't think that I would be opposed to having like a little rest moment after that, especially because Local Man was very inclined to do that. They did the Local Man Gold. What was the other one?
I think.
Yeah. And then this one, they've done both the issue 25 and also a swimsuit special, which I think is sticking with their theming of like
Feel like
kind
I should.
of paying homage to one shots when doing one shots. Um, this one I liked conceptually. I feel like it was nice at the end of what is essentially the end of the series. Like it might come back for other things, but it certainly won't be an ongoing again. I don't think. Um, I liked having the 1 year later in that instance. The plot of the 1 year later, I wasn't as jazzed about. I think that the concept of it was okay, like Crossjack turning on third gen to fully embrace fourth gen, I think is not a bad idea, especially in terms of like leaving the universe open for fun and like I don't
Yeah.
know, good energy. And I think that challenging Jack's initial conflict of he just wants to be Cross Jack again and having him like choose to reject that was a very strong character beat for him to have. I feel like the way that it was written wasn't my favorite thing. It was in a way that Local Man and with all the love of my heart for the man, I love his Nightwing, I love Hackslash. In a way that Tim Seeley can often be, is a little on the nose. Um, and you know, there's a time and place for that, and I think the end of a series can be that time and place. But the end of the series, one shot a year later, was maybe a little too strong for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
How did you
No,
feel?
I pretty much agree with you. I think that this was the kind of thing that, like, if you explain, like, the general plot to somebody, you could be like, oh, that sounds kind of like it makes a lot of sense and get there. But then
Yeah.
you kind of get into the nitty gritty of it, and it's a little weird the way that they did some of the stuff. And
Hmm.
there's stuff I enjoy in it.
We love
But
Pepper.
like, yeah, I don't know. It feels a little like on the nose is even like you're right, but it's on the nose in the way of like we talked about like the conspiracy theorists who end up being right. So like
Yes.
it's like what do you
Yeah.
think? It's on the nose in that way of I still don't really get what Tim Seeley's trying to say.
Yeah.
Like I like, but like there's weird things in there where like he has what maybe is supposed to be like a political message, but then there's like discontent in it where there's like something that you would
Yeah.
like you think the things that he dislikes are on both sides weirdly, and so you're not really sure if he's trying to say that's good or bad, and it's a
Yeah.
little confusing. Um, but that's neither here nor there. My big criticism of this is a lot happened kind of in like a tell don't show way, if that
Very
makes
much so.
sense.
Yeah.
Like we get the communist villain, what was his name, Superior or whatever, and they're
Yeah.
like, he was not actually a bad guy. He was just like fleeing for some like we didn't see any of that. We were told that by fourth gen. And then like I
Yeah.
guess the idea is that um uh Crossjack just like believes them and goes and like, yeah, like I assume the idea is yes, they were telling the truth, but from a reader perspective, there's no like
Yeah.
nothing's actually there. It's fully just told to us. And my biggest thing is, like you said, the idea of him like rejecting this third gen thing is a great idea. But my big critique there is I feel like the slam dunk, and I don't think it's a spoiler to say something doesn't happen. Maybe it is. Cover your ears if you don't want spoilers. He doesn't reject it and become local man. He like just stays crossjack and turns on like what?
Yeah.
Like I feel like the slam dunk there is reject it and become the book's namesake, your new identity of local man. Like that felt like that was the slam dunk ending of this issue and the ending of the series, maybe that
Yeah.
didn't happen. And I was like, that was a slam dunk. Like, why did that not happen?
Yeah. And I feel like it was something that you could have even done without saying what happened at the end, actually. But I feel like there could have been just like a 2-panel thing at the very, very end that then alluded to his like career as local man or something. But
Just something
instead,
like
it's like
it seems like
very,
the slam thing.
yeah,
If you want him to reject that identity, have him embrace the identity where he was actually a hero versus the identity
exactly,
where
yeah.
he was like publicly a hero. I think you hit the nail on the head. Like there were a lot of good ideas, but the execution was just kind of weird, which I think might have just happened from them making a last minute decision for this to be
Hmm.
kind of an ending. And
Yeah. And if I could speak on that for a second, I feel like one of the big, I don't know, what ifs of the book or like questions of the book is like where Crossjack's power comes from. Because they played with this idea of him like having this almost meta comic book hero knowledge, like literally moving between pages at certain points. And I feel like
yeah, but
that
that was
didn't
like I
get.
feel like we had a long conversation about this, and you were thrown off because you read it in the trade when he actually came out and like walked in the comics, and that didn't happen in the actual issues. We had like a long
Oh
conversation
yeah, it stuck with me because it was
about
a
this.
very interesting thing to witness. And then
Yeah,
was
no.
nothing.
I
There was
don't
nothing with
think
it.
that was ever their intent. They do kind of something like that in here with his dog, who has like more cosmic-y
Yes,
powers.
yeah, we
But yeah,
love Pepper.
I don't think that was like fully a fair theory, and like I know you. I don't think that I ever felt like they were hinting at that being a thing.
That's fair. It's more that I feel like there was not a good follow up to, because he even does bring it up in this issue of like he doesn't know what's guiding his hand. I'm like, don't ask that question if you're not going to answer it, you know?
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah. But that was the supposedly end of Local Man. Tim Seeley and Tony Fleecy said they might come back for more as inspiration strikes, but
Yeah. They
for
also said they're
now,
working on another series together, so
yes,
that's
yeah.
very interesting.
Yeah, but for now they are on an unexpected and indefinite hiatus.
Yes. You know. Have not discussed this with Katie, but I'd love to do stuff like this in the middle of the episode because it might get awkward. I believe the new Hack Slash series starts next week, so
I believe it does.
yeah, maybe we won't be out of Tim Seeley. We'll just be out of Tony
Hell yeah.
Fleece for a little bit. So
But hopefully the two of them will come back for more installments of
yeah,
Local Man because we really like the series.
I think there will be more
Yeah.
Local Man. I think that's going to be the case, but yeah.
But for now, Prairie Gods. Prairie Gods number 2. Neither one of us has a physical this week. Ned Reed has been the sheriff of Broadacres for as long as anyone can remember. He has cold eyes, black hat, and a long black coat that are well known to anyone who has stepped outside the law in his jurisdiction. While on patrol in the hills, he's alerted that the wanted fugitive, Donald Cyrus, has been sighted in a nearby town. Reed jumps into action and will use any means necessary to bring Cyrus in, even if he has to break the laws of nature to do it. The writer-artist here is Sean Connery, Volk of Nottingham, and the letterer is Becca Carey. Jet, this is the second installment of this new anthology series, where it's a bunch of books kind of centered around the same area in Midwest, North-South area. How'd you feel about Prairie Gods number 2?
Somewhere.
It's very much the middle of
Yeah, no,
nowhere.
yeah. The first issue, I quite enjoyed, but if you remember, my main gripe with the first issue was that I didn't like the car chase. I didn't like the way the car chase was really drawn, and it was mainly a car chase. This issue has no car chase, so that the one thing that I wasn't really a fan of wasn't here. So instantly, this is issue I enjoyed even more than issue 1, and it followed the sheriff, who from like his one page in the first issue I loved. So that was great, and it was a good set. But this is a series that I think really like is one of those series that's like all vibes and all tone.
Oh
Like
yeah.
that's
Oh
really
yeah.
where this excels. Like it gets you in it in this cool tone, and then I can't really talk about the main like thing that happens here because I feel like that's all
it's a huge spoiler.
spoilers. But one, those
And
pages are gorgeous, and
right? Oh my
two,
god.
it's really cool. And
It
like
is.
half of that is art, but also just a really cool like idea in the way that it's and
Right?
I guess it is. It's really like the artistic execution of it that like a writer artist like this is a writer artist book kind of through and through.
Yeah.
And yeah, it gets weird, but in a really fucking cool way, and that's I don't know that I can talk about why I love that so much without spoiling some stuff, but I really really enjoyed this issue, and it was a big step up from issue 1 to me, and yeah, I like the horse riding more than I like the car chasing in this book and in this style. So that's what I'm gonna throw it to you.
Hell yeah. Yeah, I think this is a book that is right up my alley. I really liked issue 1, car chase and all. And as we've discovered together on this podcast, frankly, turns out I'm a sucker for Westerns. And this man has the most cowboy vibes you've seen in your life. He's
Yeah.
super rad. I fully lost my shit when he goes into like this bar to be like, "Where's Donald? Donald Cyrus." And one of the one of these biker guys is like giving him some shit, and he's like, "Oh, the sheriff's here. Well, I saw a jaywalker." And as he's leaving, he gets the info he wants after like beating someone with a pool cue, which is always rad. And his like little lasting line of right across the
nice.
so good.
There's like the beard like almost becomes a motion blur
Yeah.
on the character being hit, and
Hell
it's
fucking
just
yeah.
phenomenal. Yeah.
And then he's like, "And I'm gonna need the name of that jaywalker." And I feel like that was just such a good character beat that, one, made me laugh, and two, like was such a like telling thing about the sheriff here. And yeah, super super rad. We see him interact with a deputy who I'm like, "Oh, what do you know?" And it's there's this sense of, like you said, just this sense of like amazing vibes in this book. Like it captures its tone so perfectly. It's all there on the page. We love a writer artist so much, and this guy does remind me a lot of Sean Gordon Murphy's art. It's those writer artists with the 3 names. They do the good work.
You Warren Johnson there too. Yeah, you got those 3 name writer artists, and it's the way. It's the way forward.
Because well, only 2 names could not hold all of the skills. They need a first name for writing, a first name for yeah.
Honestly, they could have up to 4 names because that's what a writer and an artist would usually have. So they're still saving space on that inside cover.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So just you wait until we read a 4-name writer artist. It's gonna blow our socks off.
It'll be the greatest creator in the history of comics.
Exactly. But yeah, amazing vibes through and through. With the shorter one shots like that, or I guess shorter anthology installments like this, it is rough to talk about the plot without giving away spoilers. So what I'm going to say is that this is a very cool book, and I am super glad to be reading it.
Think about it. Yeah, I guess because then it's not like the next issue we're really going to talk about what ended up transpiring in the first one. Yeah, that's a very fair point. But yeah, it's a cool book.
Are we ready for another cool book that we've been excited to read?
Pedestrian.
Wait. He didn't abide by my wait sign. Let's do it!
The Pedestrian number 3. Behold, the Pedestrian. A strange visitor speedwalks into Summer City and silently changes the lives of its residents. But not all is quiet in the sleepy small town, as ancient conflict linked to the secret history of the street signs is brewing. Don't walk, run. In the Pedestrian, justice always has the right of way. The writer of this series is Joey Esposito of Batman Urban Legends, Aquaman, and Grimm Fairy Tales. The artist is Sean Von Gorman of Kiss, Star Trek, and The Crying Boy. The colorist is Josh Jensen, and the letter is Sean Lee. And I want to, in this moment, before I throw it to Katie to give us the opening monologue, I want to shout out Joey Esposito for being the first person to ever recognize me in person from this podcast at New York Comic Con. So thank you, Joey. That was really cool. And I want to thank both Joey Esposito and Sean Von Gorman for just being super cool. And I had an awesome conversation with them, and they told me a lot about the book, and that was really, really exciting. And spoilers, they might tell you guys all a bunch about the book on the podcast in the near future. So that's really cool. Thank you so much. And I'm going to throw Katie
very mean to Joseph because he was talking to the creators of The Pedestrian and didn't call me. I was at work, but I would have assumed it was an emergency. But But we are back at it, boys. Justice always has the right of way with the Pedestrian. We absolutely love this book. It is so right up my goddamn alley. It is the perfect blend of like silly and taking itself seriously that fits both my sensibilities as a little jokester and my sensibilities as a reader. It has some really like haunting sequences. Like I showed this one while you were doing your thing, but when these horrifying masses are in fact not waiting, they are crossing the street. They're jaywalking. It is so terrifying, actually. Like we talked about in our last episode in our creator corner about how to like create a good like victim in a horror scenario, and one of the big things is making you care about the characters. And I care about all of the characters in this book so much because they're given such good like grounding and characterization right off the bat. And over the past 3 issues, I've decided that they are all my children and I love them. And these scary men are coming forward with their spooky masks and they're going to hurt them. And it created such a good sense of fear, especially as we know the Pedestrian is laid up from his encounter last issue. The character interactions in this book are so great. The way that they utilize the like sign lore, which feels so silly to say, but I take so deeply seriously, is phenomenal. Like every page is just an absolute trip, especially when those pages have the Pedestrian himself on it. Not going to touch on the ending.
I really want to show is too late, so I'm not going to show.
That's what I was about to say. I can't touch on the ending, but
yeah,
one of the both funniest and like best payoff things that I have seen in like our current round of comics. Phenomenal. You know what I'm talking about. I loved it so much. It's so good, and I'm gonna let you talk in a second. I'm so sorry. But the way that yet again this book operates as not the Pedestrian's story works so beautifully. We talked about this in the first issue where it's about how the Pedestrian touches the lives of these other people. He still has not said a single word, and he doesn't have much to do this issue after being space fucked in the previous issue. So like it's really just a testament to how wonderful the cast of characters is and the creative team is that they've created a book where the title character isn't even there for most of it, but it's still very good, and that it does in fact get even better every time he shows up.
No, absolutely. 100% the case. You really hit on like all the things there, but the biggest thing is how, regardless of like how much or how little, we need a term for screen time in comic books that doesn't pull from movies like
panel
page
count.
Time. I don't know. Panel time. No, regardless of how much panel time these characters get, they do a phenomenal job of making you attached to them. The dynamics between the characters are so interesting and so great. I can't remember the name of the babysitter right now, which is embarrassing me. But the babysitter and the kids have such a cool dynamic, and it's really, really fun the way that they like just in that super kiddish way, like convince her to take them out, and she also wants to because she wants to catch the Pedestrian. So it's really, really cool. All of the characters are really engaging. They really you care about them. Like Katie said, she sees them as her children because she's a weirdo, but you will definitely care about them. No, and I agree with you. I love all the sign and stuff, and I love the fact that they call themselves the guard now, like Tropic Guard. Like that's so cool, and I really, really enjoy that.
It's rad
but yeah,
the
series has been phenomenal. I'm disappointed that I certainly don't think 4 is going to be it. From how this book seems to have been fairly successful, and Joey Esposito and Sean Von Gorman seem both very passionate about doing more of it. So I doubt issue 4 is going to be the end, but I'm definitely still a little disappointed that issue 4 will be the end for now, or at least for a time, because I think that's as much as we have coming. So this book's awesome. It's really, really, really cool.
So rad. But that's going to take us to the end of our recs for the week. So that means that I'm sorry, the end of the reviews. So that means it's time for our recs. Jay, would you like to go first, or would you like me to?
I think yours is the obvious one. So if
How
you want
dare
to just
you? I am an enigma. I have chosen the pedestrian. Yeah, all the
such an
reasons we just
enigma.
said. Such an enigma. She's unpredictable. You never know my next move. But I do want to give
Yeah.
special shout to I. It's a testament that it was a close week with the pedestrian and Prairie Gods. I really love this issue of Prairie Gods as well.
I am I am torn right now. I am
Oh
torn.
no, he's torn. He's
I
vamping.
kind of want to. I want to. No, I'm not. I'm not. I'm gonna stick to the method that I've given when I'm torn
Okay.
on books, and I'm going to come here if I can find my books over here.
And your
If I'm
method
spoiling right
has
now, that's
been
not
the
the
things that
pedestrian.
are accessible to
Despite the
new
pedestrian being
readers.
awesome, because it is issue 3, I'm gonna go because I'm torn between the two with Titans number 16, which might as well be a number 1 because this
That's
is a
fair.
brand new start, and I
Very
really,
fair.
really am excited about this run. I think the setup here is really, really good. I think John Layman understands all these characters on such a great level, and I don't think I've really read any of Pete Wood's work before, but I
I have
think his
not.
art is just phenomenal,
Super,
and I
super
really,
fun.
really loved it. So
We love
yeah, I'm
a
gonna give
writer
Titan
who's
15 with a
willing.
heavy aside to I still love the pedestrian, still one of the best series going right now, and I'm very excited for that. But Katie already gave it one, so I felt like I could safely do another one too. So our pull list recommendations of the week are Katie's not holding hers up anymore, so I'll hold it up for her. The Pedestrian 3 and Titans 16. Pick up these books wherever you get your comics. You can always check out the other books we reviewed too. But yeah, Katie, where do we go from here?
Oh, you know, Joe, it's time for the Creator Corner. All right, gang, here we are in the Creator Corner where we sit back, relax, talk about books, talk about being writers in the industry, and continuing on theme for October, we're talking about something a little spooky today. Get a little afraid, Jay Bird. We're talking about ghosts. Now, we talked about
Typically, yes.
monsters 2 weeks ago, but ghosts, I feel, one, we didn't touch on at all, and two, there's a lot of avenues for ghosts. So to
I'm actually
start, we're
currently
going to
writing a ghost
go.
book. It's very funny for this.
Sorry, what?
I said I'm currently writing a ghost book series.
Oh, shit.
Written the first 2 issues so far. For work for hire job. So yeah, very
There you
funny.
go.
Worked out.
Amazing. Well, then you've obviously got ghosts on the mind already. Uh,
Yeah.
so we're going to start with our most stereotypical spooky ghost, Jay. Where do you think ghosts land in like horror mythos? We're talking about specifically scary ghosts. Like, what is their
Ghosts have.
function?
I think it's very different. I think you have more of an uphill battle, especially because like we're talking ghosts here, which I feel like I feel like the specification of like ghosts go beyond possession, like where you're showing a like spirit when it is not in somebody's body. Like it's like a
Sure, sure.
you need to be able to see, the audience needs to be able to see the spirit at some point, whether or not
Mm-hmm.
the people do. And I feel like that specifically because like possession stuff can be freaking terrifying.
Yeah.
But like specifically like the seeing the I think because of like the years of like like funny ghosts and like ghost costume stuff, I think you have an uphill battle making like a spirit ghost actually
Mm-hmm.
scary in general and especially in the comic book medium. Because if you're doing the comic book medium, you're really gonna just be like drawing them on the page, and I think that's an uphill battle to make that actually be something that people are scared by. But I think ghosts are one of the like most classic, horror
Mm-hmm.
Halloween type creatures. So there's obviously a lot. There's a lot there, and there's a lot of history there. But yeah, I think it's an uphill battle personally. How do you feel on that?
It certainly is. I think that, like you're touching on there, if you're going with a very like classic ghost, you're setting yourself up for failure. Like if you're going with a sheet with eyes cut out of it, you've lost your horror battle already. Like I'm sure that there's someone out there who's drawn like a very bloody sheet ghost and has like given it pointy teeth, all the things that we talked about to make monsters scarier 2 weeks ago when we talked about making monsters. if you're going with that classic ghost, it's just gonna be cute. It's just gonna be funny. Like you're gonna lose that battle. But then we look at things like kind of spooky Victorian ghosts and like I keep going back in my mind to the Harry Potter ghosts, like with nearly headless Nick. You can do a lot of stuff with ghosts, especially because they can
It's funny
often
you say that
be.
though, because I think because of things like Harry Potter, I think those ghosts are an uphill battle too. Like I think a translucent person, no matter what they look like, is an uphill battle because of things like Harry Potter, where somebody's head can, well, and it's still not scary. Like it's just like we
That's
kind of
fair.
accept
That's
that this is
fair.
kind of goofy and fun and whatever. So yeah, I was talking beyond Sheet Ghost. I think is a lost cause, but I think translucent person as like that like stereotypical ghost. I think
Mhm.
that's a very uphill battle to make that scary.
See, that's fair. I think that that's less so the case as someone who's a wimp and is easily scared. And with ghosts, you can play a lot with like cause of death type of things, which is why I brought up the nearly headless Nick. Because obviously, in a children's book, it is presented in a very normal and fine way. Even to draw on my weirdly encyclopedic Harry Potter knowledge, like the Bloody Baron, who like murdered Rowena Ravenclaw and then killed himself. It's even there still like, oh yeah, we don't need to focus too much on him because it's fine. But I think that if you are in the proper medium and setting your proper tone with your book, you can have a lot of very spooky ass ghosts. And I don't know that translucency is necessary for ghosts. And that kind of bridges me, unless you
That's
had
fair.
something to
But
say.
I like you touched on the proper medium, and I think we talked about this a lot. I don't think comics are the proper medium for these guys. Like, not that you shouldn't do, but
It's
I think
fair.
that comics are more of an uphill battle medium. Because you're not gonna have
Mm-hmm.
sound. You're not gonna have a lot of those like things that you can play with that add to the creepiness and scary factor. You're not gonna have a weird voice or anything like that. Like you are putting it on the page, and I think
Mm-hmm.
in general, and you hear this a lot from like I think you listen to horror creators, like talk about like horror in comics is less about being scary and more about being unsettling.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's very difficult, if not downright impossible, to scare somebody with a comic book. Like you're not going to jump scare somebody. You're not going to like
Right, yeah.
you're probably not going to be able to get them to like curl up in their curtains and like as they're reading be like, oh no, I don't want to flip to the next page. Like you want them to either be scared for your characters or you want to unsettle them in a way where like maybe they
Mm-hmm.
like feel like like that like pins and needles. Like you want them to feel like maybe a little unsettled because I think that's more where you can succeed in the comic book medium compared to like a movie. You can have something jump out and startle them.
Right, right.
You're not gonna
And
do
I
that as
think
a comic.
ghosts specifically are very good for non-visual mediums, because a lot of what we have traditional ghost lore around is like the feeling of ghosts, like the chill in the room or the
Yeah,
feeling of being watched and stuff like that.
yeah,
But I, talking about the translucent boys, I do want to pivot to. I think that there are very effective ways to do ghosts, and one of those is. Do you ever watch not the Betrayal at House on the Hill? That's a board game. The Haunting of Hill House.
uh, I think we
Really,
brought this up in one of
really.
our other creator quiz in a couple in the past
Probably,
couple.
probably. Really effective use of ghosts there, where the ghosts aren't like translucent figures. They're just kind of stuck in their time, and they have all of these like unsettling aspects about them. Almost in like a Crooked Man style. One of them is like constantly like this from being hung with their neck cricked to the side. One of them is like unusually tall with a spooky hat. Okay, that sounded lame as I described him as having a spooky hat. But it is very scary, and I think
A very spooky
that's one of
hat.
the ways that you
You're
can
such
use
a scary
ghosts.
boy with your scary hat.
Look, you know I'm a wimp. Leave me alone. Um, but I think that that's one of the ways that you can lean into ghosts in a visual medium, which is not going with the way that ghosts stereotypically look. Like having the ghosts be forces that cannot interact with the like physical world but are here and are like doing this like psychological damage to your characters can be a really effective way to do ghosts, and without ending up with Casper core, uh wispy tail
Yeah.
little white fellas who don't look intimidating anymore. So I think that the way that you present your ghosts is super important. Are there any sort of ghost presentation things you think can add to the horror of a ghost in a visual medium.
And I don't mean to come at you. I dislike using the term a visual medium here because I
That's
think
fair.
film and comics are completely different in
I
the way
mean,
that you
valid.
do
Fine,
things.
fine. To add
Um,
to the spookiness of a ghost in a comic
yeah,
book.
yeah. No, I just want to throw that out because I think a lot of the things that work in film are not going to work for you in comic books. Like I think
Sure.
because comic books are more of a static and you don't have sound or anything else
Mm-hmm.
to back you up, I think you have to kind of go a very different way. I think what you hit on with like the psychological is a great way, like having them like essentially like torture your character with like kind of
Mm-hmm.
psychological stuff. Like, I think of like this. You'll see pages where like you'll have like a figure in the middle and you'll have like ghosts all around them or spirits or like heads of people that they're like remembering, and that stuff can be really unsettling in a really great way. But the other thing I'll throw that you kind of like, um, you kind of set up perfectly there because you said when you have these characters that can't interact with a physical world, I'm going to throw out they can. There's no rule saying your ghosts can't
Fair,
interact with
fair,
the
fair.
physical world. Like that's a big thing in the story that
Classic
I'm writing with ghosts is
poltergeist.
that our ghost, who was a ghost of a serial killer, is still a serial killer now, but as a ghost, and that is our
Mm-hmm.
villain in this book, and thus he can interact with the physical world in some really cool ways, and that's how I think I keep the again. And it's not like we're not trying to jump scare you. It's more of like we're trying to unsettle you. We're trying to make you think the characters aren't safe because
Mm-hmm.
the characters are very much at risk of being killed by this serial killer ghost. So that's kind of how I think you build up the stakes. But yeah, I really like where you were at with like the psychological thing of I think that's
Mm-hmm.
maybe the best use of ghosts. And I think if you're not doing that, you need to pivot to making some sort of fundamental change to ghosts, like them being able to
Mm-hmm.
actually interact with things.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, I think you can really get in if you can get in the headspace of the character that's being tortured by the ghost, whether it's like through captions or through them
Mm-hmm.
speaking or some sort of interaction with the ghost figure in a really creepy way, and you have the artist do something visually nice with like them taking up more of the page, or having a big head for your character on the page where you can feel their like stress and anxiety. I think that can be extremely effective in the
Mm-hmm.
comic book medium.
Yeah, and to so ghosts themselves don't feel like something that can take up a lot of conversation, but I think the way that ghosts really differ from a lot of the other monster types that we've talked about is that ghosts can be used in a variety of story. Like we mentioned that, you can do comedy stuff, you can do like romance stuff with other monsters, but I think more than anything, ghosts can very much show up just in any book. And when you're looking at, and I think that's often like in kind of a familial way, like we can talk about it, like the way that it shows up in Rogue Sun is kind of like the echo of the original Rogue Sun talking to his son, or you can look at it in terms of like Force ghosts showing up in Star Wars, where they don't really interact, but they do kind of like add to the lore of the story. Or you can have someone who's like tagging along and is a friend. So when you're looking at adding a ghost in a non horror setting, what do you think are the like kind of the guidelines for dealing with ghosts?
You kind of hit on like the familiar thing being like the main way that's going to be used. Like, oh, you want
Mm-hmm.
to show a connection to somebody who was there or whatever. Like very much the Force Ghost thing of, oh, we still want Obi-Wan to still be able to kind of be a bit of a mentor thing. So we'll
Yeah.
we'll do that. Or uh, the Rogue Son thing of we want the mentor figure of the original father. Like I think that is a tried and true method. But I think it really is like, okay, well, what is your story? And then like, because I doubt you're going to be sitting there with a non-horror story and saying, I want a ghost in this. Let me figure out how to put a ghost in this. Like, it's much more likely that you're going to come upon like, I want these characters who are dead to be able to interact in some sort of way, or I want this sort of thing to be a part of the lore of the world. That's some sort of
Mm-hmm.
ghost thing. I think there's certain things you'll see that has like that takes from like what's it like the Day of the Dead where like ghosts come from
Yeah,
one
yeah.
day. I think that's an idea that's been taken for a lot of things where it's like when this thing happens, ghosts can kind of come up about the earth and stuff like that. So I think the advice I'll give you, because I'm not really giving any, because I think it's difficult to like be like, how do you throw a ghost in this
For
non-horror
sure.
thing, is to just kind of come upon like where you need it, and then when if you do come upon a thing where you're like, I want to use a ghost, I just think through how it works. Like think through like, why is this ghost here? Like does this work? Because if you're sitting there and it's like, I want the guy's father to come back as a ghost. Someone have the guy's father come back as a ghost, and that's all you do. It, like the question then arises of like, well, why is everybody not here as a ghost? Like, why is this guy's father a ghost but nobody else's is? So you can go the unfinished business route. You can go like, there's so many avenues you can go, but just I think it through and think about the fact that your ghost probably is not going to be the only ghost. So just think through like, okay, why would these other characters not be, or how does that work? But I'll throw it to you, because you seem to you. Yeah, I'm hoping, since you asked the question, maybe you have an idea of how you would put a ghost in a non
I
horror.
can always come up with something to say. We're
Yeah.
Yap Central here.
Oh yeah.
So I think that ghosts, like you said, you need to be very. I think that it's very much an intentional thing. Like you say that you're not going into a story with like, oh, I want there to be a ghost. I think you very much are. Like if you're, 100 issues deep in something, and you're like, wow, I wish that in my supernatural horror
Can
story.
I throw out the quick amendment? I
Yeah.
meant that you're not going into it with the idea of, I want a ghost, but I don't know how. Like, you're not
Oh,
going in
fair
with
enough.
like,
Fair enough.
I
Okay.
want a ghost in my action book, and I need to figure out how I'm gonna put a ghost in this. Like, well, that was more my point, because
Very
the
fair.
question was, how would you put a ghost in this? Like, I don't think you often come in a non-horror book and go, how am I gonna fit a ghost into this thing?
Very fair. Yeah, I think that you very much go in with the idea of this ghost is here. Like that this is a part of the story. Like you I feel like there's a finite list of things where if you introduce them in your story, you have to have a reason. Like I think that most things you can get away with just like, oh, because it's cool. And that can be your
Oh,
reason for
cool.
your ghost. But I think that a ghost probably needs a little more than that. Like in like a kid's book, if it's
I
like, oh, because it's cute for this kid to interact with a ghost. That's one thing. Or like it'd be funny if this person fell in love with a ghost. I guess that's romantic, maybe.
If he wants to write a
Um,
ghost love story, you heard it here
that's
first.
right.
That is going to be her
How do you know
debut.
I'm not already? Uh, it's already on its way to the presses. It's called Ghost Love, and it's just a fan comic of the movie Ghost. I don't know if there's actually a ghost in that, but I know there's love.
I'm gonna talk Katie now into doing a ghost love comic, because
Oh, I
yeah,
will.
that's
It'll
gonna
be
be
a
my thing
is
now.
it Cullen Bunn who does ghost lore?
Yeah.
It'll be a companion comic. He does the ghost lore. I do the ghost love. But yeah, I think the ghosts are something that you need to be incredibly
It's really
intentional
funny
with.
with you not reading ghost lore. Like you should really read ghost lore. It's very
Oh,
good.
are they
What
boning ghosts in ghost lore?
no. It's just the way that the ghosts are done in that. You're like, you being like, they'll do the lore. I'll do like, it's just very funny to me. The
Here's the thing:
ghosts in
I'm
that are
not here to kink
decidedly
shame the
not
NPCs.
very ready for a love story.
Okay, fair enough. What are they? Are they like the kind of wispy bottom half?
They're
Okay, Jay doesn't like
just
my jokes. It's fine.
unsettling. They're very much your like psychological
Yeah,
warfare
yeah, yeah, yeah.
vibe. That's very
Um,
much the vibe of ghost lore.
Look, it'll be a
Um,
toxic relationship. It's fine.
that's
But yeah, with ghosts, you have to be real intentional because if you're putting a ghost in your story, the story should be about the ghost. Like that's kind of where I come in with that. It's like, okay, you can't just arbitrarily be like, oh, ghost where there previously wasn't, because it's with like horror stuff and supernatural stuff where you can get away with that. Otherwise, ghosts like they draw the attention. So I think that if
I
like
do love the juxtaposition of you bringing up Star Wars before and now being like, you can't just shove in a ghost where there wasn't a ghost
see,
before.
I'm throwing Star Wars in the category of like a supernatural thing. Because like the Force is magic. I don't know, at me. Like Star Wars is just as much fantasy as it is
Magic goes to
sci-fi.
supernatural, like that's more fantasy, at least in my vibe. Like
I think
supernatural
it
to me
touches
very
on
much goes into
both.
like the like horror. I would not categorize Star Wars as supernatural. I would categorize it as like fantasy or sci-fi or space opera, or I don't
Fair
know that
enough.
I've ever
I
heard
very
somebody
much
categorize
associate
Star Wars
ghosts
as
with
supernatural.
fantasy in a supernatural way. But a lot of my fantasy also is like werewolves and vampires and stuff. So there's
Yeah,
very much a crossover there for me. Um, but yeah, I think that having that family connection is super important, or having some sort of like deep personal connection to your main character. I think, like you said, the unfinished business route is like fodder for fun, because you know that in any route where this ghost has unfinished business and they've like recruited a human, that human's going to be learning about themselves and learning and changing. And I think that's one of the big things is your ghost is often going to be the vehicle for your main character. Like they should very much be a character in their own right if this is like the route you're going. But I think that most of the time when you have an accessory like a ghost, it should be done in service of the main character. Like I don't think that Casper has a lot of character growth, you know? It's the people around him who do. So using them as a vehicle rather than being the driver.
yeah. I
Yeah,
was trying to think of a joke there that had to do with maybe vehicle. You were using a lot of like vehicle like driving fun. And I was like, oh, there's a joke here somewhere, and I could not think of it. So,
he couldn't find
uh,
it.
yeah.
It was invisible to him. A ghost joke, if you will. That wasn't good.
But
Don't you laugh at that. But yeah, so ghosts can be used in a lot of different formats, and I think that often when they're not being used to actively like horrify and terrify, it is because they are there in service of the character. They you've put them beyond the grave. There should be a reason that they're beyond the grave and not just like a friend. Um, which is a really useful thing to have. Like I think that if someone's interacting with a ghost, they're probably not in Kansas anymore. Like they're going through their own thing. My last touch is a bit of, or my last question rather, is a bit of an odd one. Where do you stand on like I'm gonna call it ghost humor almost? Like we're looking at our kind of Ghostbusters and Beetlejuice things. How do you think you can effectively use like the supernaturalness of a ghost to further the comedy in a book? So I'm not
you
talking they're
should
gonna
know
like
better. You,
than to
you
ask you
should
about
know better than
comedy.
to ask. Yeah, than to ask me about comedy.
Here's
Notorious
the thing,
not comedy writer over
but you have
here.
very strong feelings, which is just as good.
My vibe with comedy is always especially in comic books, because like, say what you will, read as many comic books. Humor is not super common in comic books. Like
Yeah.
it's not as common as I think people would lead you to believe through comic book adaptations. Like comic
Hmm.
books are not typically chock full of jokes, just because comic books are a medium where you usually press for space. So you're not really like, I'm going to use couple panels on a setup and the payoff of a joke. Um, there's a lot of like there's situational and there's funny things, but it's not like I
Hmm.
think a very joke based medium. There's certainly like sarcastic comments and stuff. But anyway,
Yeah.
my point is where I usually stand on comedy is I think that comedy is best in comedy. As in,
Hmm.
if what you're doing is comedy is like either a comedy book or a comedy something book, like an action comedy or whatever comedy. Like comedy should be one of the like core things of the genre you're writing if you're going
Hmm.
to do comedy in a comic book. At least in my humble opinion, I do not think your sci-fi or your supernatural thriller needs humor in there through the joke, through the ghost. Like I don't think
Hmm.
you need to find in your supernatural book a way to make something funny with the ghost. But if you're telling, like you said, like a Ghostbusters, a Beetlejuice type thing where humor is one of the major things there, then that's perfectly fine. And then you just need to come like from the conceptual step and figure out how is this going to be funny? How am I going to, appeal to people's sense of humor in this book? And it's not ghost related, but it's like
Right.
the pedestrian sits there and it's like, yes, this is going to be funny, we know this is funny. But even then the pedestrian's not sitting there like there's definitely certainly jokes in there, but it's not sitting there like constantly cracking jokes
Hmm.
about the pedestrian. You talk all the time about one of the best things about it is how it takes itself seriously
Yeah.
despite how funny it is. So yeah, like that's another thing you could do. You could set up something with ghosts that is just inherently funny and then take it super seriously. And a lot of times that's the way that comic books are the funniest, when they're taking
Hmm.
themselves the most seriously. So there's my high level humor, like thoughts on comic books, and you can apply it to ghosts kind of as you will. But I'm sure Katie will be able to more specifically talk about ghost humor.
Well, as the funny one on the podcast, clearly, uh, since he does wreck humor, I think that ghosts are rife for like very shenanigansy humor. Like, I am of the mind that I'm not like the biggest fan of the like Ghostbusters style of joke where it's like, oh, they made a fart noise and ectoplasm came out instead. I think that when you have a ghost, you have a very unique, like Jay was kind of saying, you have a very unique situation that you can draw humor from. And so being able to kind of work within the iconic ghost forms, which can be like ectoplasm esque squirt. No, I don't like that phrasing. Uh, Ectoplasming. Uh, and not being able to touch things and being able to kind of poltergeist those things that you can touch is like using the non like just kind of Ghostbusters esque ghost angles are where to fall, because I think that a lot of the stuff, like you're saying, the humor that comes out of comics is in the things that are happening, as opposed to like almost what you were talking about with fear, where okay, there's a dumb example, but whatever. You don't have the fart sound to go with your ectoplasm, the same way that you don't
Yeah.
have your score to go with your horror moment. You don't have like the canned laughter to kind of get people going with it. So you very much need to be leaning into what the medium works with, which I don't think is the type of ghost humor that you normally see. A really great example is the graphic novel Sheets. It's an all ages graphic novel. It's super cute about a ghost, and like it's just getting into ghostly shenanigans. Uh, there are such wonderful ghost books. There's also oh no, A Gift for a Ghost. That's what it's called, by Bor Hey, I believe is the writer artist on that, where you can do really kind of like, you can do funny things while also being like I feel like ghosts add a bit of mystery to a book in a way that like a werewolf doesn't, for example. Like this lingering afterlife vibe is often like rife with, I don't know, symbolism and metaphor, even if you don't like lean super hard into the theming of that. I know that I've deviated from the humor bit, but it all kind of connects for me, where your ghost offers you a very like concrete representation of a more horrifying thing like death and mortality that your characters can play with, whether in humorous or dramatic ways.
Absolutely. I think you hit on something there that's really important and just like high level. I want to shout out like high level comic book advice. Just like write for the medium that you're writing. Don't like write your comic as if you want it to be a movie or a TV show. And
Mm-hmm.
so you're writing like, ah, wouldn't this be funny if on a TV show, like you heard this sound, and so we'll try to do, like it's a comic book. So maybe you can do something that with like SFX would be, with your lettering effect would be funny. But if you can't, you can't. Like understand that you're writing a comic book, and understand that that is the medium, and do what is going to work in that medium. Like you said, both with the way that horror works and with the way that comedy works, it's very different than
Mm-hmm.
film or television, which is very different from a novel. And
Yeah.
so you just really need to be cognizant of the medium that you're writing, which always comes back to read the medium, and get
Mm-hmm.
very familiar with it. So read things like ghost lore, read things like
Gift for a
the ghost
Ghost,
books that came.
Sheets.
Yeah. Like
There's
read
some
those
really
kinds of
fun
things,
ghost based
and
comics out there.
yeah, and that's gonna be probably the best lesson you can get, better
There you
than
go.
we can explain to you in 30 minutes.
But that is going to take us to an end on this creator corner. It was a bit of a weird one, just talking about ghosts. I'll have to rack my brain for one more supernatural themed creator corner topic, because I will commit to the theme. You cannot stop me for next week. Um, you know what? Frankly, if you've got ideas for supernatural themed creator corners, drop them down below, because I'm. Uh,
You should grab like some just horror like things and then throw up a Twitter poll, and we'll
There you go.
we'll see.
Perfect. Yeah, we'll deep dive on your favorite horror topics. But what's horrifying to me is how many books we have for next week's episode. Jay, do you want to tell us what we've got in the pipeline here?
I think this is going to be a new record outside of the catch-up episode.
Yes.
This is, I believe, our new most amount of books in a given week, and I believe only one of them is a new, and it's not even new, but it's us jumping onto a book for the first time. Like, everything else is stuff that we've been reading. So this is it's gonna be a crazy week. We're going to be reading, first up, The Body Trade #2.
Mm-hmm.
We also are going to have The Moon is Following Us #2. Two series that I'm very excited to read the second issues. Then we have our first book that we are jumping on for the first time on the podcast, which is Nightwing. We're jumping on the new Nightwing
Dan Waters.
run, starting with issue 119 as part of DC's All In initiative. So that's going to be really cool. Then we have what I believe is the end of the first arc of Rook Exodus, with Rook Exodus #6.
Yeah. If the last issue is anything to go by, I would bet you are right.
Yeah, I believe they're going on a bit of a hiatus after this. Not 100% sure, but I believe that's...
Image book? I mean, it's technically Ghost Machine. Going on an unexpected, prolonged hiatus?
It's not unexpected. I think this has been...
It's a very planned hiatus.
Yeah. I think they always said they were going to have breaks between the arcs because Jason Fabok cannot do a monthly book, which is super fair because his art is crazy.
Gorgeous.
We're going to then have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #3. We're also going to have The Hunger in the Dusk Book 2, Issue 3. More Hunger in the Dusk. Very exciting. And finally, we have Void Rivals Issue 13, which is the start of a new arc. So that will be super exciting. But Katie, do you want to tell the people what else they can kind of watch from the past and to the future?
To kind of be on our spooky train and a little bit of our ghost train. I feel like the Crooked Man had more ghost energy in the comic than he did in the movie. This past weekend, we reviewed the Crooked Man movie. We talked about the comic last month. We read through the graphic novel. We gave our thoughts. We kind of explained what went on. And we do pretty much the same thing with the movie. We do a bit of a comparison here and there. Jay, if you had to summarize your thoughts on the Crooked Man in 4 words, what would you say? I put him on the spot. While he thinks about that, next week.
I'm gonna say I'm gonna go with my initial thought.
Even 4 because I thought you had 4 on hand.
No, because I did something came to my mind. I'm like, I don't think this is gonna come across how I intend for it to come across. Okay. But fair enough. I'm gonna say them anyway. Comic good, movie bad.
Interesting. I agree that I don't think that comes across how you would have intended. Though it is in the format that I expected the four words to go, but we'll leave it with that. Go check out that video to see how accurate you think Jay's 4 words reflect his opinion. And next week, or I'm sorry, this coming week, so technically this Saturday, we have our tier list video for the month. We are going to be going through a bunch of the Halloween specials that publishers have put out over the years. Very excited. Did we do something similar to this before? Am I crazy? I think I might be crazy.
Yeah, we've had the idea for a while, and we're planning to do this for
that's fair.
Christmas too. So we've never done
anything like this before. Right. That's what I was thinking of. I was like, did we do a Christmas one? But no, that'll be coming. Spoilers. Check out either one of those guys or any of our past episodes. We've got our Strange Saturday Super Show playlist linked. All of our exciting episodes with all of our exciting reviews and insights.
And you guys seem really, really be digging the Hellboy videos. Both of the Crooked Man videos have performed super well. So thank you guys for that. And I mean, evidently that means we need to do more Hellboy stuff. So keep a lookout for that. I'm sure we'll be diving back into Hellboy sooner rather than later. But as in any case, we hope to see you next week. Comic Geeks.